I'm Rob Manne, this is Haley, and we're here to talk about 10 marketing automations every growing, scaling business should use. So we're going to quickly introduce ourselves, then get into a little bit of upfront just to explain like what exactly are we talking about when we talk about marketing automation. Then Haley's going to get into her top 10. And then we'll finish with some ways that we can keep them fresh and effective. And our hope is to get through them pretty quickly so that we can hear questions, we can get maybe some automations that you like to use and get rolling. So Haley, do you want to quickly tell the people here about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me today. It's great to be here. I see there's a chat that says you can't see me, so I don't know if I'm a floating head or not, but
let's see how to do that. Keep chatting.
On speaker view. Okay, so that means that's probably a yes. Well, nice to be here today. Thank you for having me. I'm the head of marketing at Clarity Recruitment, but I've worked with various marketing automations tools with helping clients get the most out of them for various points throughout my career. I'm happy to be here. And we used to work together at Rogers many years ago.
Yeah, we were just catching up on our career trajectories and like, okay, you were here then and I was here then. Mm-hmm. I'm Rob Manne, one of the 3 people at Inflectiv. And just to quickly explain what we do, essentially we help grow businesses using revenue operations. So tools like we're going to talk about today to help optimize, accelerate sales, marketing, and service, inbound and content marketing, and communications and thought leadership. So we were just talking too about how do all those things work together. So we may cover that today too. We'd like to launch our very first poll. Hopefully this will work. Aha. And the poll is, how would you rate your expertise with marketing automation? Are you completely new to this? Are you an expert? We'd love to hear. Okay, we're veering to, can you see the results too, Haley?
I cannot see results. I just see hosts and panelists can't vote.
Okay, yeah. So I'll just, I think I can share them. Okay, we're veering towards, there we go. We're veering towards more expertise here. So this is good. Okay, thank you for your input. It's really helpful to know where people are at so we can tailor it. So I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. So what is marketing automation at its essential level? It's the mechanization of manual, time-consuming marketing tasks using software, artificial intelligence, and other digital tools. And marketing automation has tons and tons of benefits. There's sort of a long list below of how, even though we're talking about marketing, it kind of relates to sales and relates to the business itself, ranging from saving time to improving efficiency, ROI. But Haley expressed it really well when we were chatting about this. Like at the end of the day, it helps align your marketing and your sales and your success as well, all in sort of one continuum, and gives you the means to look at that together and to do things that move people along that journey without as much effort from the teams that are working on it. And there's tons and tons of tools. We were talking also about how, at one point there was marketing automation before CRM and different tools that existed. And now there are sort of more all-in-one players. So this slide is basically just to explain that, there's a wide range of tools that enable marketing automation. And some of them, have more benefits than others, but really it's about using these tools effectively that will help to have that impact. And lastly, for sort of some of the newbies to marketing automation, just want to say that what we're going to talk about today kind of was really built on 3 principles. And the first principle is this is about data collection. So in order to do marketing automation, you need to have tools that are capturing data. And so, it could be an email, it could be a series of information that you have on your customer. And that becomes the container by which you layer all sorts of data over top of it. So that data collection is key, and then ensuring that that data can hopefully be integrated with other tools so that you're able to then say, okay, we know that they did this over here, this happened over here, and it allows that for that integration. The next point that's worth mentioning is that all of this is designed to get to better, more segmented marketing. So having the data allows you to say, I know who this person is from this person. I know the types of things that they're looking for, the type of things that they're not looking for. And then I can build personalized experiences for that person in order to achieve the objective that you're going after. And lastly, this is really designed to be kind of silo busting. So this really works well when you have collaboration between marketing and sales. So you're going to hear a lot of sort of jumping back and forth between those two things today. And if you're doing it in isolation, it can have some benefits for you in terms of let's say an email campaign, or for things you're doing in social. But it's really down to how you collaborate with the other teams to really make it work. All right, Haley.
Okay.
I'm just gonna make sure it's spotlighted. Okay.
Yeah, so, we just actually went through this exercise at Clarity. I only joined, I guess, about 2/3 of a year ago. And one of the first things was to move from using MailChimp, which actually has some great automations available in it, but to using Hubspot. So that we could, and really the goal was, how do we get sales and marketing working a little bit closer together, giving sales more information, automating more things for them, and also superpowering our very small marketing team so that we could do more. So we use HubSpot, but I've used Pardot or Salesforce in the past. And they're all variations of the same, which is basically they're if this, then that platforms. So you get to set up lots of different things, make different actions happen. So if a prospect does this, then this happens. If a prospect does that, then we want them to do this. Add them to a list, add them to campaign, add them to a drip campaign, send a task, send a message, all sorts of different powerful things that we can do. And so this is just a screenshot if anyone hasn't actually been in the tool, but I think you probably have, since we're fairly advanced on this call. We want to take a marketing contact. We want to add them to a new drip campaign. We want to set a delay. You have the opportunity to basically put any of these branches in, make something happen.
Yeah, and just to go back to the data piece. So when we talk about automations, you need the data for you to then say, if this data does this, then we can tell the system to do that.
Right.
So the data points are there's tons and tons of them, which I think you're going to get into.
Yeah. So the first most obvious automation that pretty much every single marketing automation tool, MailChimp, even the email marketing platforms can do is content autoresponders and welcome drips. And really you're setting these up because you want to help your customers and prospects, first of all, find the thing they're looking for or know that they completed an action. So if somebody fills out a form, somebody sees a webinar, you might want them to be able to find it again or know that they made their purchase is completed or their event that they signed up for is confirmed. But there are also great ways to sort of welcome them to your business and tell them more about what you do. So in these welcome drips, you can send how to use the thing that they just bought, or how to use the thing that they're reading. You can send offers, introduce them to different product lines, and then related content. So depending on who the person is, you can send them different welcome drip campaigns or different content, depending on what their first action was. Anything to add, Rob? Is that?
Nope, you're doing great.
Okay. I just left this on my screen. So the second one is segmentation. So it's about ensuring that your audience is getting the right message. So in marketing, we constantly talk about it's the right message to the right person at the right time. And so lead segmentation really helps you do that. So it's using form fields, hidden fields, or activity behavior to determine the right next step for your lead or your prospect or your client. So we just threw in a little example, the number of employees. So based on the number of employee size, or based on their geography, or based on the action that they took, is there the right next message for them? The right campaign, the right list that they should be put on. So we said, oh, well, they have 35 employees. This is their segment, right? If they're from the United States versus Canada, you might be having a different sales team nurture them. Lead segmentation helps you do that and helps you make sure that all the prospects are getting the right messaging.
Yeah, and I will add to this one just that the segmentation is always, in our experience, is something that people do in a certain way, but there's always the opportunity to improve upon that, to constantly look at your list of customers, list of prospects, to say, okay, what do we know about them? How has the data told us more? And so it shouldn't just be done, let's say, with a form at the very beginning. It's something you should be looking at, and you can use automations to do that as well as you grow, to then say, okay, now we have 5 subgroups, and what do we know about these 5 from the initial one that came in? And that will just allow you to make better and better decisions over time.
Yeah, definitely. And also, what are your best prospects doing? What do they look like? What was the action that they took next, and help making other prospects go that same journey?
And you were talking about some of the segments that are in your business that are very different, that you need to cater to, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. So as a recruitment firm, we have sort of 4 different segments that have very different messaging and very different needs and pains. So we've got candidates who are looking for jobs, applying for jobs, and what they're looking for on our website, or what they're looking for to connect with recruiters, is very different than, let's say, a hiring manager. And even within our hiring managers, we've got hiring managers, people in finance and accounting, people who run companies who are looking to work with us. And then we also work with HR, and what HR is looking for and what they need to know from us is usually very different than what their CFO is looking for. So, we have these different audiences who have different needs and pains and come to us with looking for different information. So we make sure that they get it, rather than all sending them all the same messaging. So this is a variation of lead segmentation, and lead scoring is about giving, it's giving different points. There's different ways to describe this, but it's different points or different scores based on the actions that they take. And so, for example, you might have somebody who downloads a piece of content, and so they might get a couple points for doing that. And then they come back to your website, or they visit your pricing page, or they visit your careers page, and different actions can sort of add points or take away points. I don't think we call it lead scoring in HubSpot. I can't remember what the word is. The lead scoring is the Salesforce term. Okay. But based on these different actions, you might start to think that they are more likely to buy from you versus less likely to buy for you. So someone comes to your website, starts looking at 100 different pages, and then goes to your careers page and starts clicking on the jobs that you're hiring for. They're probably not a prospect. Versus if somebody comes in, downloads a form, goes right to your pricing page, they probably are a prospect. And how you let sales know that is, you don't want to send over everybody who's ever downloaded a piece of content, who ever visited your website, to your sales team, because then they won't like you, because you're wasting their time following up with prospects that aren't qualified to buy. So it is about sort of scoring those leads that come in based on the actions they're taking, their demographics, other key indicators that make them more likely to buy, adding them to lists or campaigns or just different segmentation, and then letting sales know when those higher scored prospects take sales ready actions, and letting them know so that you're passing over the good leads instead of the ones that are not likely to buy.
We had a question from Robin, and I want to go back to her earlier question that we missed, which is, how do you decide the right number of points per action for lead scoring?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And in my experience, it has been trial and error. So, you set something up, and then, whatever is going over to the sales team, and you have to work closely with your sales team to get feedback and see, which leads did they work, which ones weren't good. I mean, that's been my, and then adjust from there. What about you, Rob? Any?
Yeah, I think it's sort of when you have, if you can assign a relative value to the things that they're doing. So if this content piece is like a really key driver for you to close a client, and then there's another content piece that is a lot sort of lighter and fluffier, maybe you can make sort of relative decisions there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have a content piece that, I think is sort of a consideration. It's a gated piece of content, but it's a really targeted at our, as a practical piece of content for the buyer. And sometimes we notice that like people come in and they download it a second time because they couldn't find, I guess they couldn't find the autoresponder, or it was just easier to come back and re-download it. And to me, that's like a trigger. You're coming in, you're looking for that same piece of content again. It's there's a task that goes to the salesperson that says, you should follow up, see if they need help with this, right?
Yeah. The other question that was raised earlier, which is still relevant to this, is how do you suggest starting to strategize an autoresponder? So do you start with a user journey flow map?
If you know the user journey enough, I mean, I usually find that people who are starting on their marketing automation journey don't have, and even myself, like how sophisticated that journey is fairly reliant on your sales team. But what's great about marketing automation is you start to learn the journey that your best prospects and your best clients have taken in order to become clients, and start to optimize and send things based on that. So, you start with your autoresponders by intros, and yes, I see trial and error. Exactly. It's great to start by introducing your company. It's great to start by introducing who you are, making sure they have the thing that they sent, but then you'll start to know, what do clients look at? What do your best prospects, how do they come to the website? And do I now start serving that to the other people that find you?
Yeah, and that's a great point. So once you set up these automations, I really love to then look at, okay, the people who have gone through it, then to go and look at their individual contacts, right? So this is where you have marketing automation that's connected to a CRM. So then you say, okay, so, Haley Morrison came to our site and downloaded this or took these actions. Like what happened there? Is that something that we want to see more of? Mm-hmm. Or was there a drop off that we can learn from? So it's really nice to go from this sort of macro, hundreds of people in an automation through to like one or two contacts to really drill in.
Right. For sure. And I see lead scoring different for B2C companies, and I don't think it is. Usually my experience, and I have not worked with a lot of B2C, other than, in that sort of recruitment is partially B2C because we've got candidates who are working with us for themselves. But I think it's just shorter usually in a typical buying cycle. So you want to send automation and triggers and scoring a little bit earlier. But, we see B2C, especially e-retailers, do this all the time. You put something in your cart, you click on some stuff, you don't check out. And so you get that autoresponder to say, hey, these are still in your cart. Or if you like this, you might like that. That's all scoring and segmentation based on how you interacted with their websites. So yeah, B2C companies are, at least all of the retailers that I shop online with are fantastic at this. Maybe too good. This is a really important one because in marketing automation, in the marketing side, you pay per contact. And so there are so many companies out there who are spending money to stay connected to contacts that aren't qualified, contacts that are not engaged, they are not opening your emails, and you are paying money to have them as part of your database. So stop doing that. Don't market to unqualified people who aren't interested in your brand. So, sending that email to say, and there's the time is important to this. Obviously if somebody hasn't opened your last 2 emails, you're not going to get them off your list. But if somebody, we send a weekly email at Clarity with sort of job updates and information. If somebody hasn't connected with that in 4 months, they're not opening it. And so I'm not paying for them to be part of my system anymore. So we send this, we have an automation that says, if you've gone, I can't remember what our timeline is, 90 or 120 days or whatever, without opening our email, you get an email that says, do you want to stop hearing from us? And tell them how long you're going to wait till you kick them off. You can send a second one if you want, if you really want to hold on to these contacts. And the great thing is, especially in HubSpot, you're not kicking them out of your database. They're not gone from your CRM. They're just not marketing contacts anymore. So you are not paying per contact. And then wipe them off your list.
Wanted to just address a question that came in from Megan. Maybe this is for the last question, but it could be for all the automation so far. Any advice for a very small business, i.e. a business owner who is also the sales team?
Specifically for lead scoring or journey automation? Sorry, I missed the context.
Yeah, I'm wondering, maybe we can, I think it's related to, we could try about maybe about segmentation and actually, Megan, why don't you give us a little bit more details of exactly what you're asking, and we'll come back to it. Is that okay?
Or maybe it's just how to get this going, I guess, when you're a very small business, because it's hard. And we can talk about that in a little bit too. So I'll wait for Megan's answer and then we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, we can address it in the Q&A.
So this one is actually for like slightly bigger sales teams, but moving marketing qualified leads right to your deal pipeline to help sales teams take the right action. So I don't know if anyone's doing this. I've seen this happen before, where you have your forms, your information, you've got your website and it's not really connected to what sales is doing. And so people fill out forms and you have different forms on different pages. And you actually lose prospects and people asking questions because it's not connected to how sales team is working. So somebody fills out a form saying, I'd like information, and it sits in somebody's inbox for like 2 weeks until the right person or owner of that inbox notices it. And I don't know if this is more of a big company thing or whatever, but I've seen it happen in lots of places before. And so how do you take your form fills and add it right to the place that sales cares about, which is their deal pipelines? So putting it in the right place and then setting up triggers, setting up automations to report on and measure in your marketing toolbox to see when are your good MQLs that you passed over to leads, how are they moving through the pipeline and moving towards closed won or closed loss, and actually eventually then creating reports based on cadence and timing.
And you can set up automations on top of that automation to just be sure that it's running, as you're staying on top of it. So, people who haven't been contacted since, in 5 days, 10 days,
Exactly.
That's key. Now, I would just say one thing is sometimes an MQL, marketing qualified lead, basically means that marketing is a number of different actions or definitions that moves people to this stage from a broader group of leads. So that's what we mean by marketing qualified leads for those people who are new. And I would just say too, is we're working with a client where we're sort of moving, we're not moving things to a deal pipeline as fast, because sometimes if they're not ready for it, it can somehow create a lot of bloat in the deal pipeline. So it depends on your business. So it sounds like your business is going to be great because you want deals entered so that the sales team knows that that's a trigger for them to take action on.
Yeah. And I think it all comes down to what is your definition of marketing qualified lead, right?
Yeah.
So a qualified lead is somebody that has, for us, gone through more of a BANT processing of like they have the right need, they are the right target audience. They're not somebody who's earlier on in their prospect journey who's just engaging with us. Yeah. For them to be put into the deal pipeline, they've actually been qualified as ready to buy and having a need.
Great. Lori had a question. Are you pre-qualifying those leads that are creating deals or opportunities? Or does the qualifying happen in the deal stages?
Yeah, so to exactly that. So they have gone through some type of qualification before they've been moved so somebody who comes in and that's a download or signs up for a webinar or interacts with us without sort of showing that they are qualified to buy, they are not going into the pipeline. These are for real sales ready actions that they've taken.
Great. And I'm going to circle back to Megan's question. She had provide more detail. Thank you. It was about lead scoring and about execution when you don't have a robust team to pass leads onto. So I guess that in that situation, you're scoring leads that come in for yourself to give you the means to prioritize who you reach out to.
Yeah. And also, I mean, scoring in ways that segment them to help you do more. I always say that like my job as a marketer and what we're using marketing automation for is really to clone the sales team. Like I listen to calls that our sales team goes to. I try to sometimes come to them because I want to take what you're doing and I want to clone it and automate it. And so we're nurturing customers, we're nurturing prospects with the same messaging that's working for you. And so lead scoring might be about sort of figuring out which campaigns to put people into and which messages to send them. I say cloning people sounds spooky. It is, but it's making them, they're in that one-to-one relationship with prospects and customers, and marketing's there to send those same messages, and what's working, it's one-to-many, right? And so lead scoring, it's really could be for you figuring out what campaigns and information or drip campaigns, automations, for you to talk to more people and share what's working with more people. So dynamic lists are really important in marketing. It's all of that segmentation and all of that scoring are really about putting people into lists and campaigns so that they're getting the right message to the right person at the right time. But this is sort of a specific automation drip about moving prospects when they become clients to the right campaign. So making sure that you have an automation that when somebody actually buys from you, that you're not sending them that nurturing that you were sending to prospects or people ready to buy, that you're actually sending them now stuff as a client. It's really...
I'm just going to interpret dynamic lists for people who are newer. So this means basically your system automatically adds someone to a list without you having to then add someone to a list. So by doing that and having automations doing those things, then something for as simple as an email newsletter that goes out every month, rather than, someone says they want to get on the list, you add them to the list and then manually, and then you check the list when you send the email out. This is all done in real time. So imagine that across all aspects of the business. So the scenario that Haley's describing is that that as soon as they've signed on the dotted line with a scope of work or made a online purchase, that they're a customer, and so that the system changes, and whatever system automations you have in place for customers, like a onboarding email, like we talked about, that happens automatically.
Exactly.
Anything else to say on that one? I just wanted to translate a bit.
I don't think so.
Okay.
This is another one that lots of companies talk about doing and don't necessarily set it up, but automating your request for testimonials and automating your NPS or CSAT or requests. So, I mean, marketing, we need social proof, we need testimonials, those are great. And also just having your NPS scores easily accessible is great. And that's something that's really easy to automate. In HubSpot, so you can automate it by sending out emails to closed won customers, but you can also use lots of different integrations. I know, Salesforce and HubSpot have these great app marketplaces, and you can get a tool like Delighted or any million of them, and just completely automate your NPS so that you get reviews and feedback and information about your, customers coming back to you regularly.
Have you seen a big increase since you've started? Oh, this is relatively new, you said, right?
Actually, Clarity's been doing a great job. They had an automated NPS always, and it's great because it's just feedback right away from people working with us, telling us what we're doing great and maybe what we're not doing great, but usually it's what we're doing great. But the other thing that we've recently automated is a testimonial request. So 30 days after we close with a client, a task goes to the salesperson and says, don't forget to follow up and here's a way to ask for that testimonial.
Yeah, here's the email we've written for you to customize.
Exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah, the email's ready to go. You just have to click send basically and add in a little bit.
Do you recommend an incentive for testimonials? Asks Robin.
I think it really depends on your business. Yeah, I think there's no one size fits all, in my opinion. It just depends who your customers are. Sometimes we've done, like, I think we've done like, capped fees or certain things or trades, but I think more often than not, we don't usually offer any kind of incentive. We just ask nicely. I don't know about you, Rob, any?
Yeah, I'm with you. It depends.
Yeah. We've definitely done, in terms of feedback, like we're doing readers polls or information, and you can win if we're giving us your feedback, you can win a gift card or Uber Eats gift card or something like that. But that's more of just market research versus actually testimonial. I think you want your testimonials to be sincere and honest, and people to feel like they can say no and they shouldn't be incentivized. But it really depends the business, I think. But you can send a gift after the fact as a thank you. This is one I'm sure everybody has gotten emails like this before, so it's not a groundbreaking one, but it's a nice one and it's important to celebrate anniversaries. So if your sales team is collecting birthdays or anniversaries, any sort of significant anniversary related to what you do. So when they became a client, in our case, when they landed a job, when we help them find a new job. And sending out some celebratory emails. What's really nice about it is it can come from your company, or it can come directly from the salesperson or the person who was most involved with them. These can be fancy and designed, or they can actually just look like really personal emails, congratulating people and deepening relationships.
And so in your business, there's a few anniversaries, right? It could be, and recognizing the audiences you have, could it be an anniversary of someone who's gotten a position that, hey, it's been a year, congratulations, or maybe on the hiring side, hey, it's been 2 years since you've hired this person.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can have both, or we also have consultants that work with us. So it can, congratulations, you've been working with us for a year, and we really appreciate your partnership. So there's all sorts of, it could be for partners, right, within your organization. So I mean, I think that the anniversary and what you're celebrating is personal to your organization, but it's always great to reach out and send nice emails. It could even just be an automation to remind your salesperson that they should be reaching out and setting a task that way and letting them decide what the message is. But from my perspective, it's always easier for marketing to provide the messaging and help people along.
Great.
Event marketing and webinar registration, and you've all been part of this, so for this event as well, but really thinking about events as whole campaigns, where you want to use them as opportunities to introduce people to your company, use them to introduce them to things that you do, follow up with them after, and also measure the effectiveness of this event that you spent a lot of time creating. So making sure that everyone who comes to your registration, your webinars, are getting put on lists, are being put into reports so that you can see down the road, 12 months, 18 months, later, has this relationship deepened? Has it yielded revenue?
Yeah, and we have a client that we work with that they actually did one of these webinars that you work with a media partner, and sort of you're getting in front of people directly that you didn't have before. And then the list of people that we engage through that channel, we have them sort of isolated in some ways in the system. So we see that their engagement is a lot higher in certain cases than the engagement from certain content downloads that we have. So it's really nice to see, like, there's another way to measure the ROI on a webinar that you do by sort of seeing behavior and better leads and those kinds of things that you can track.
Yeah. And when we were talking about it, it was really about not thinking about your event as a single off event. It's really, what is the campaign and how are you going to wrap it? And how are you going to stay in touch with the people that you've acquired through it? And
yeah, ideally
making sure that you're sending the
opt-in.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Pardon me?
And making sure that you're sending the right stuff to them based on their interest, right? Rather than, yeah, just sort of doing it once and forgetting about it. Because especially when you're a small marketing team, it's hard, right? You know, you move on to the next thing. And then this is probably, you know, more advanced or slightly more advanced. So this is more for B2B companies, but targeting, sorry, I'm losing my thoughts. It's about setting yourself up for account-based marketing. And so segmenting not just your contacts based on what they're doing, but actually segmenting your companies into tiers based on their buying habits, and then setting up sort of your campaigns or your information based on those company demographics, not based on people and actions. So in HubSpot, there's a really great target account features that they've recently brought into this platform, where you can segment your companies either manually based on information that you've been putting to the system, or you can use plugins like LinkedIn or Zoom Info. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, but basically like revenue information. So you might want to put, you know, based on if a company's 10 million revenue or more, they're a tier 2. If they're 50 million in revenue more, they're a tier 1. And you can sort of use that information that's automated into the system to create those segmentation, and then build your campaigns, your ads, everything, your communications based on those, and measure how well your marketing and sales is going based on your tiers and your target accounts.
Do you have an example? You did a good job. I mean, yeah, maybe an example might help if you want to.
Yeah, well, I mean, we use it. So we have our target accounts and we have our top 50 accounts, and we use revenue and demographic information to tier them. And we use those tiers to actually build our LinkedIn campaigns and our retargeting. So different tiers have different messaging that we've identified is more likely to help them move through the pipeline. So that's
perfect.
What
Okay, so before we open it up for more questions, you know, we showed you the automations. Hopefully this gives you some good ideas, because we were just talking about how once you see the tools and then you sort of see some use cases, it really helps you sort of then determine how, you might want to take advantage of these tools more. But once you've set them up, the key is not to just sort of leave them. We like to talk about, asking these types of questions regularly with the automations that you've set up. So first question, basic one, how is it performing, right? Is it doing what you want it to do? And is there something that you're learning from this automation that you may want to use to tweak it, or to maybe build new automations or different ones that start based on, because if you think about, the automation tree that we showed about, at the end of it, ultimately, you've got sort of piles of people, for lack of a better term. And then what do you want to do with those segments, those piles, that information that you have that you can then use? And it might be another automation, it might be a manual step that you want to do to do something. So that's the first step. The next one that you should think about is, okay, maybe you've got it, automation working this way for everybody, but perhaps you may want to build in more A/B testing. So maybe you say it's the exact same flow, but let's try this message that is maybe more, has a bigger image, or maybe has a stronger call to action for 50% of the audience. And then this that has, the original message. So you can do A/B in millions of different ways when it comes to the actual, copy on the page. You can use it with different types of content in the flow. You can just go from there, but you only want to do it, of course, if it's worth the time for you to do those things and to see if it's going to pay off. And then you should always think about, like, what can you automate more? Like, we really like to work closely with either sales or marketing people to say, okay, like tell us the pain points that are driving you nuts. Tell us the things that you do again and again and again that you really don't need to do. So look to say, what can you automate more to save time and to make for a better experience? But also, I'm a big fan of that manual step to say, maybe before you even create an automation, you sort of say, okay, we're going to do these things. Should someone then look and say, does this make sense? Like, should it come to someone as a notification that says, oh, this person has been moved to this stage where we want to send them this email maybe, or suggest that the salesperson calls them. Is that really the best thing to do? So just build in that step for if it requires a manual step of a human to say what makes the most sense. So, Haley, with the questions that we're raising, how often do you go in and like look at the automations, tweak them? Is it a daily thing?
I don't think it's a daily thing. I don't have like a set process, but I do check them regularly. I mean, first of all, when I'm setting them up, I usually am checking them more frequently in that first month to make sure that they are running properly. I often check in with our sales team to make sure that they're sort of getting the right triggers and tasks and that they're finding them helpful as well. So making sure that we're working effectively together. And then I do go in, I don't know, maybe on a monthly basis, right? I mean, I'm constantly checking my reports and dashboards and to see, making sure that we're hitting our KPIs. And if we're not, going and saying, okay, well, what's affecting that? And that automation might not be working properly. And then going and digging in that way. I think when everything's sort of like working and your KPIs are hitting, I'm not checking on those as frequently.
Yeah, I also find this the hardest part because especially with small teams, like bigger companies have like people who do this all day long, right? So they're naturally going in, but for people that are smaller, you're sort of like, well, I have 15 things to do today. That's kind of not screaming at me, so I may not get to it as much. So maybe putting a reminder on the calendar for if that's the case might be a good idea.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a good idea.
Like Fridays is the day that we do at Inflectiv, we do writing and then we check automations. So Fridays is generally might be a good day for you. Robin had a question about having a database of automations. Would you recommend that?
So I mean, I'm working in Hubspot right now, and we use the folders a lot in our workflow, all of our workflows. So we've got sort of our automation set up by sales pipeline, marketing contacts, client nurturing. So there are multiple automations that fit into all of those different folders. And so that's how we keep ourselves organized. But a database sounds cool.
I mean, that's interesting because it's with a lot of things in HubSpot. Lists is another example, right? Where it's like, you can see them all, and even if you organize them, you can know what they are, but it can be harder for people coming in to really make sense of all those things. So yeah, I think that there could be, especially if it gets really complex, right? Where there's like tons and tons of things that all relate to one another, having some sort of dictionary might be a good idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have only been using, I think we implemented HubSpot in January, February, I think really February, and only really got our sales team in more recently. And we already have 88 workflows in our system because we also have workflows that are connecting other tools, are sharing information back and forth. Like there's lots of different things going on. And so I find the folders are helpful for keeping us organized. And it does help somebody coming into the system to say, okay, these are the marketing ones. Okay, these are the sales pipeline ones. These are the data integration ones. And help them find what they're looking for a little more effectively.
Fantastic. So I'm going to open it up for questions now, if I can click on the right button, and I'll take this screen off. And we already have one question. So the question for you is, what is the coolest, most interesting thing you've done with automation for marketing?
Yeah, I just saw that, and that one made me. So one of the, I don't know. I think for me, the coolest thing that I've set up for automation is not necessarily that the automation is so complicated. It's more that the drip campaign that we created, had the right content and different messages for different stages of a person's, this was more life cycle marketing that I'm thinking of. And it was really cool because we just created all of this really great content to help with the life cycle journey. And it really seemed like we were doing something exciting for our clients. So I don't know. That's not a great answer. What about you? What's the most exciting thing?
I'd like to open it up to some of our experts to sort of see if they have ones that they can recommend too. Not to put anyone on the spot. You can type them in. Oh, yeah. No, I'm trying to think of the coolest ones. Like, I mean, it's hard because it gets a little complicated. Usually it's really taking advantage of the data that's in the back end to be able to make decisions and to serve things up.
Yeah, well, I think that to me is like knowing where people are in their life cycle, and making sure that you're really targeting that right message. So the example that I'm thinking of is we wanted to create a placed candidate campaign. So when you place a CFO in their first time CFO role, or the CEO in their first time CEO role, they're going through like a really big journey that's going to be very different than your typical clients, right? Like, I've never been a CEO for the first time, but I can imagine being a CEO of a big company is a pretty scary and exciting thing. And so we actually compiled all of this content from different advisors to say, like, here's what you need at 1 month. Here's what you need at 3 months. Here's what you're thinking about at 6 months. And we brought sort of all of these leaders and experts in to help create that content so that when you do open that email and you say, congratulations, you've been in your role for 6 months. Here's what other CEOs are thinking about at this point. And you're like, oh yeah, this is really helpful for me. It's not really the automation that's so cool, but it's that power of that segmentation. I think that makes it really cool.
Yeah, and you get that to the person that is going to appreciate it.
Yeah,
and benefit from it.
Yeah.
One of them that occurred to me, I was going to ask you about is, I've seen this capability and I've experienced it as a customer, but I've never used it with a campaign, is the notification that you could get when someone's actually visiting your website or they're opening and reading your content. You ever had that thing where someone calls you to be like, hey, I see you're looking at our website right now. Just wondering if you're thinking about hiring us for legal services. How do you feel about that one?
So I used to work at an agency where we would help clients set up their marketing automation and their content and all of that kind of stuff. And we always we would always, because this was when marketing automation was new and people didn't know, the idea of cooking your website was still like a fairly relatively new concept. And we would say, like, it's like dating, right? You don't go into your very first date with somebody and be like, so how many kids do you want, right? There is a process that we have sort of like all accepted of how you get to know people. And I mean, I think if it's a client that you have built a relationship with and really well, and you see that they're looking at something and you want to reach out because you know them and you know that that's appropriate, could be fun. If I did that and somebody did that, I think it's also about that segmentation, about understanding just because I'm on your website doesn't mean I want to hear from you, doesn't mean I'm ready to buy. So it's about that right signal, I think, for the right person. There's nothing worse for me, I think, as when I go and I like check out a demo and I don't fill anything out and I don't have more, and then I get calls from the BDR, like, you're churning me off your product and service, not turning me on,
that's
right?
And that's a great point, because like, don't be slave to the automation. Like if you have whether it's a sequence in HubSpot anyway, like where it's like the salesperson's going to do this and then do that and do that. So if someone is being thrown into an automation when you don't have the data on them and they're not really ready, that has the worst experience, right?
Yeah. But I'm curious if there's anyone on the call who's had that happen to him, or they've been on the website and somebody called them and it worked out great. I mean, I'm not one to knock tactics if they're working. So I think in marketing, we have to always be experimenting and trying things. So.
Well, I'll tell you, I actually when I got the call, the scenario I mentioned, I really was looking to get a legal opinion right away. So I was
Okay.
like, because I'm in the business. So I said, well, I really appreciate that you guys understand where I'm at. So
Mhm.
sure, let's talk. And I ended up working with them.
Right. Right. So that's awesome. So I mean, it can work, right?
Yeah. But if it was a
Um,
consumer, if I was a consumer shopping for a rug and I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to buy this, at very early stage, I would
yeah,
not have taken too kindly to it.
yeah. But there is also where I've sort of like filled out a form for more information or for a demo, and I've gotten that autoresponder with the calendar invite, and I booked a meeting that day because I actually was really interested. And there also on the flip side is something worse than like trying to book a demo and having to wait 2 weeks because somebody took a while to get back to you or their calendar wasn't available. So um, yeah, it's all about timing. It's true, Robin. It's definitely all about timing.
Yeah. Okay, well, unless there are any other questions, I think we can wrap up. And I wanted to thank Haley Morrison for joining us and making a lot of great points related to marketing automations.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely being here and working with you again.
Yeah, same here, same here. And thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate all the questions and feedback. So thanks, and we'll share the video of this for anyone who wants it. And if you have any other feedback, let us know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Enjoy the beautiful weather if you're in Toronto.
If you're in Toronto. Yeah, take care.